to be normally an 18-week semester, and you're not going to fly the first 2 weeks. So that's X'd out. And the plan is, again, 30 days prior is to be done. So if that's 4 weeks and this is 2 weeks, that's 18 minus 2 minus 4. That leaves us 12 weeks. And in this case, you're going to get 35 hours of flying done. Now this semester, if each flight is 1.2, 35 divided by 1.2, we'll just say that's about 30 hours, or 30 flights. So 30 flights, 12 weeks. You notice that's a little more than 2 flights per week. So you're going to start out getting scheduled a little more than 2 flights per week. But the moment that something stops you from flying, we're going to add at least 1 extra flight the following week for you to get caught up. And if for some reason we're sitting right here and there's only 30 more days to the 30-day limit, you might have to fly 3 times a week that month to catch up. Because I'm going to be sitting here going, this month right here, what if the weather is bad? Because we've already covered the importance of why you don't want to have an I grade at the end of this. So I'm just letting you know how the way it's going to work is that on Friday afternoon before 5 o'clock, you will be in an electronic online flight scheduling system. And so Friday at 5:01 p.m. you can open it up and see when all your flights are scheduled for the next week. What you're going to do on the first day of class is you're going to fill out a form and say, here's when I have to be in all my other classes. And if you have to work, I have somebody that is working at Lemoore Naval Air Station on the 2 o'clock p.m. shift. They're going to say Monday through Friday, I can't fly from 1 o'clock. They got to drive. They're going to write in 2 o'clock and write in Lemoore. They can't fly from 2 till whenever it is, 11 o'clock at night or something. And then I'm going to match up everybody's available schedule to the flight instructors that I have and match them up as best as possible so that if you're free on weekends and I have an instructor that's free on weekends, you may fly more on Saturday and Sunday than you fly Monday through Friday. Is that making sense? The way I plan to do it is, when I was in the service, this is the way the flying schedule went, and I loved it. When that schedule is published on Friday, it will not change unless you get a phone call. The only way that schedule will change after Friday, once it's published, is either me or your flight instructor will call up and say, Mabel, we got a flight scheduled for Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and I need to move that because that night in LA is a Kiss concert, and I got to go see Kiss. Because I'm the world's biggest Kiss fan, which you know, because I come with makeup on when I'm a flight instructor, and I look just like Gene Simmons. So imagine being in an airplane with Gene Simmons. Of course, if you don't know who Gene Simmons is, it's not very funny. So they're going to say, okay, can we move that to Monday at 2 o'clock? So you need to be prepared with a schedule. No matter what happens, you need to either have a Google schedule or an Outlook schedule or a paper schedule or whatever you do, because your flight instructor is going to call you up and say, can we do that? And you're going to say yes, and they're going to put it in the electronic schedule. And now that they've called you, you're responsible for it. Does that make sense? Is that going to work out? So what will happen is Friday at 5:01 p.m., your schedule is for the next Monday through Sunday. So let's say today is Wednesday, right? Is today Wednesday? For everything through this weekend, it came out on Friday last week. Sweet. So Friday evening last week, I know if I'm flying this Friday night, this Saturday, and this Sunday. So you always have about 8.5 days notice. Does that make sense? I mean, let me rephrase that. Nobody's ever going to tell you on Friday at 5 o'clock you have to fly the. It's already on last week's schedule. let's keep going. So I'm not going to talk about gen ed classes other than you need to go to them. And we already talked about History 102 being Tuesday, Thursdays at 8 o'clock. So attendance, I'm talking about flight courses. If you're taking gen ed classes, you got to do whatever that instructor says. When I say the word mandatory, it means that if there is a graded activity that day and you have an unexcused absence, you will get a 0 for it. And on the first day of class, we'll go through that syllabus, but it'll probably say if it's an unexcused absence, you'll have 7 days to make it up, but you only get half credit. If it's an excused absence means it was a circumstance that was beyond your control. I submit it's within your control to wake up and come to class. And it's within your control to find a parking space and get to class at 8 o'clock, because all the quizzes in ground school are going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning, not at 8:01 and not at 8:02. So watch out with the road work out there and parking. It's going to be a chocolate mess. So I would recommend that you get here in plenty of time to be here before 8 o'clock. So you got to come to class. If you're planning on missing a lot of class because you've done that before in college classes, you will not be very happy this semester in your flight classes. You will not be happy. Do not make travel arrangements that interfere with the published schedule. I've actually had students come to me and say on November 1st and say, Mr. Johnson, I see in the schedule that the final exam is on December 14th, but I have bought plane tickets that leave town 2 days before that. Is that going to be okay? I'm telling you right now, I'm going to say no. You either need to miss the final exam and see what happens to your grade. By the way, you'll flunk class. Or you need to change your plane tickets because you got this in writing on the first day of school. If you make a plane reservation for the day after the final exam, I won't have any trouble with that whatsoever. But I want you to think about this for a minute. The last day of final exams is December 14th. Let's say the weather gets bad. You buy plane tickets for December 15th. You're going to New Orleans for your younger sister's wedding. And you like to drink Hurricanes. If you don't know, that is a rum-based drink. Not that I'm advocating drinking adult beverages, in particular if you're not an adult. But in any case, you want to go to New Orleans. You buy plane tickets for December 15th. On November 15th, the weather had been bad for a week, and it stays really bad. If December 14th rolls around, and you still have 2 more hours to fly to finish the flight course. You bought plane tickets on the 15th. That's okay with me. Nobody's upset. But it may be difficult to get those last 2 hours in before the next semester starts. So I would be very careful about doing travel arrangements right at the end of the semester. You won't be in trouble for it. But we'll do everything we can to get you that flight or those flights. Okay. If you don't come to class, this is the way class is going to work is, how many people in here have ever operated a flying machine in the sky? Okay, several people. Awesome. Is it kind of fun? Is it kind of fun? How many people have had an in-flight emergency where you were the most experienced person sitting at a flight control? Has anybody ever had a bird strike? An engine failure? Carburetor ice? A crosswind landing so bad that you thought you were going to crash? People are puking in the airplane. All right, so we have some fun times in airplanes. All right. Well, the thing about becoming a professional pilot is not how much data you can spew, how much knowledge that you know and you can say out loud. It's when the poo hits the fan, are you going to be able to make a really good choice and then act upon that choice and save the day and not just save yourself. Really, you take some data in a short period of time with what you know and then make a decision, and then can you execute the plans within your decision. So to me, pilot ground school and learning how to fly is not about being able to answer multiple choice questions. It's about under a certain circumstance, and something happens, about what the best thing to do is and actually do it. So the way we're going to in class, we're going to do scenarios. We're going to do what ifs. We're going to plan a flight or have a scenario and say, okay, we're flying to San Francisco International and we're going to fly right smack over San Francisco Bay. And if you know about flying into that airspace, you're probably going to be descending lower and lower and lower. And at some point, you're going to be over San Francisco Bay, and you'll be farther than gliding distance to the land. And if you can hit the land, you buildings on it, because it's San Francisco on one side and Oakland on the other. So we can talk all day long about whether the FAA says you have to have a life raft on the airplane or whether or not you have to have a personal life preserver for each person. The question becomes, you're 2,000 feet over the water and the engine quits. What are the top one thing you need to do? How about number 2, 3, 4? Thinking about that and getting grilled, interrogated, asked questions by your instructor, where it forces you to think about what are your alternatives and how to pick the best one. That's the most important reason why you need to come to class. I also think it's the most fun part. Has anybody ever flown at 2,000 feet over the water and been away from the distance of the shore? And had somebody on board think you were going to die if the engine quit? It wasn't me. I didn't think I was going to die if the engine quit. I thought I was going to get wet, but if the engine quit. Turns out I had a passenger that's scared. Well, they didn't actually pee their pants, but they were thinking about it. So that's why if you don't come to class, there are thought processes you will not learn. Yeah, you're going to have to make a decision in class pretty much every day. I might not call on you, but I'm sure going to try, John. I'm going to try to call on you every day. Now, I'll call on multiple students every day. And it's not a matter of whether you're right or wrong. It's you start developing those thought processes, those patterns of decision making, so that at some point, if something happens, you'll do the same way you did in class. When I was in service, I was on a combat group. I had a saying: if you train like you're going to fight, when you fight, you'll do it like you trained. So the more training you could do that was as close to your fighting as possible. So we don't have to fight, we can just fly. Train like you're going to fly, so you'll fly. Okay, if you train for engine failures, when you have one, it's going to be like, oh, the engine quit. Oh, yeah. Pull back to best glide, trim, look for a good spot, turn towards it. Oh, I'm 2,000 feet above the ground. I got 4 minutes till I hit the ground. I can crank in 7,700 on my transponder and hit the ident button. I can switch fuel tanks. I can turn on the boost pump. Yeah, I'm getting closer. All right, I'm going to start circling over this dirt field here. And I'm going to crank in 121.5, and I'm going to say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And I'm going to read off a latitude and longitude, or I'm going to say I'm 10 miles north of the Fresno Air Terminal in a Piper PA-38. I'm at 2,000 feet descending. I got engine failure. I'm going to line in a dirt strip. I'm squawking 7,700. You know, if you practice these 5 things, I've done it a gazillion times, and I do it when nobody's even in the airplane with me. I go, okay, I'm going to pretend I had an engine failure. I pull the throttle up, and I just do that. So whenever it does happen someday, and it's like how many people have puked on board an airplane? You don't have to raise your hand, that's okay. But there are 3 kinds of pilots when it comes to puking. Those of us that and those of us that have and will again. So we all fall into one of those 3 categories. It's the same with engine failures. You're in one of those 3 circumstances. You're a pilot who has been on board an airplane when the engine quits. You're a pilot who's going to be on board an airplane when the engine quits. Or you're a pilot who's been on board when the engine quits, and it's going to happen again. You're in one of those 3 circumstances. All right, now I'm ranting. Thanks for paying attention. So the ground school's all here at Reedley College. We're going to have a short tour here in about 10 or 15 minutes. I'll show you where Classroom 3 is. All of our ground schools are going to be in the next classroom over. Simulator lessons are also here in the Aero building. They're on the far side of the mechanic lab. I'm going to show you where that is today. And all the flight lessons are at JB Aeronautics at the Fresno Yosemite Airport. And I was wrong here, you don't have to take all your gen eds at Reedley College. You can take your gen eds anywhere you want across the state center community district. Your counselor if you want class online from Los Rios Community College out of Sacramento, then there are ways to do that. You don't actually have to take your gen eds here. It's probably just easier. If you don't want to take your gen eds here, talk to your counselor. Don't talk to me. I don't know what all those rules are yet. Student code of conduct, I'm not going to go into this, but thou shalt not cheat, otherwise thou shalt suffer the consequences. Don't worry, generally speaking, if I catch you cheating, you will get a 0 on the assignment, an F in the course, and I'll ask my supervisor to kick you out of the flight training program. It's really that simple. I will do that in every circumstance. I don't have the authority to kick you out of the degree program, but I promise I will ask my boss to do that. I'm not going to go down this stuff. All right, so if you don't like the way things are going in your ground school class, your simulator class, or your flight class, the very first person you need to talk to is the instructor. If you don't get the answer that you want, then you come see me. Of course, I might be the same person. If you see me and you still don't get the right answer you want, you can see Dean David Clark. His name is David Clark, and I'd be happy to give you his name, address, phone number, not where he lives, but here on campus. You can then go see the vice president. After that, I don't know where to go. I'm going to go through this really fast. The FAA has this thing about alcohol. Like, for instance, if you have 2 DUIs too close together, the FAA won't even give you an FAA medical because they think you're abusing alcohol. If you have a history of illegal drug use, I don't even know what those are because I always put no on my FAA medical exams that I have not abused drugs or arrested or anything. A big issue is taking somebody else's prescription drugs. I got to tell you a story. I had a student at a flight school I worked at. We had random drug and alcohol testing. Right now, there is no random drug and alcohol testing at Reedley College for students. If that happens someday, I will be the first one to let you know. But I'm warning you now, if that occurs, you'll have to do it. But the school I taught at, every person, whether it was an employee or a student, whether they flew or not, you had to pass a drug and alcohol test before you started. And then you were on the list for random drug and alcohol. We popped a kid. He was 25, had been in the United States military, and he confessed when we called him in. He said, "Yeah, I was taking my wife's pain medication because I had some back pain." Well, his wife's medication was an opiate, so it showed up in the drug screen. And he actually even came in the next day and wrote a letter that he took his wife's pain medication. It's like, you just copped to a felony, dude, right? In writing. We handed it back to him. It's like, we don't want this. You don't want us to have this piece of paper. You really don't. But they were done. So, you can't ever show up we'll talk more about alcohol in ground school, but you can't smoke marijuana anymore. Even if it's legal in the state of California, it's still a federal class 1 drug. It's up to methamphetamines and cocaine and all that other good stuff. So if you had fun, that's okay. I'm not judgmental about anything you've done prior to today. I probably won't be. I'll try not to be judgmental in the future. But we're involved in it. You will have a blood and alcohol test done, and if you test positive for a prescription drug that's not yours, or a prescription drug you're on that you're not authorized to use because you're flying, or you test positive for alcohol or for marijuana or for other illegal drugs, you're done. So you need to decide what kind of high you want to have. I'm not complaining. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to tell you what the deal is. I'm not complaining about anybody's activities up to today. So there we go. Oh, I highly recommend you're probably, as a professional pilot, going to apply for a job where they're going to do a DMV driving record background check on you and a criminal background investigation on you. So I highly recommend that you stop doing anything illegal, as in driving 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. There are some places you can't get a job as a pilot if you have too many tickets, because they look at you and they say, you're not willing to follow the rules. If you won't even drive the freaking speed limit, you're going to not follow FAA rules. We're not even going to hire you. I'm not upset about what you've done in the past. I'm telling you that my best advice to get that job in the future is you need to at least look like you're following the rules, because nobody wants to hire a pilot that doesn't follow the rules. Oh, and speaking of criminal background checks, I just found out a couple of days ago, in order to fly at JB Aeronautics, which is where we're releasing the airplanes, actually to fly at Fresno Yosemite Airport. I'm going to get done talking here. You have to get an airport badge, because you cannot be on the airport ramp with the airplanes without an airport badge, because you can walk from that ramp and go walk up and touch an airliner with 100 people on it. And so the TSA, part of Homeland Security, the Transportation Security Administration, they got a thing about who gets to walk around on the airport. So what's going to happen on the first day of school, you're going to, Mrs. Brannon of JB Aeronautics, B is for Brannon, is going to come in. We're all going to fill out an airport badge application, and that's another reason why you have to have your state, your proof of citizenship with you, because you have to have that for them to take that piece of paper that you filled out and give it. And it's a long story on how that all happens. But I just found out a couple of days ago, the city of Fresno that runs the airport will give your name and your social security number to the TSA, and the TSA is going to do a background investigation on you. And if you have a felony charge, they probably give you an airport badge, and you will not be able to fly at Reedley College. I'm going to say that again. If you don't have an airport badge, you can't fly at Reedley College, because lots of times there will be no one there to escort you. Now, you can go on a lesson or two, but every time you walk out the door to get onto the ramp, your flight instructor has to go with you. Do that. Mrs. Brannon says it takes a week or two to get that, get your badge. Okay, I believe you. I probably think you said. So they're going to take it back that day. They're going to do some more paperwork, and she's going to give them all back to me. And then by the end of the first week, I'm going to pass it back to you, and then you get to drive to the Fresno airport and say, "Hi, here's my money, and here's my ID, and I want you to give me an airport badge." And then they will take it with the money, because it's a background check. So you need to seriously consider that if you have a felony conviction, that you will probably not, according to Mrs. Brannon, you won't get an airport badge. And I'm telling you, if you don't get an airport badge, you can't fly at Reedley College. So if you have questions about that, see me after class. All right, we had two people in the back of the room. Reedley College is your official way for the college to notify you, whether it's admissions records, financial aid, VA services, or me. If I send it to from my email at Reedley College, if I send it to your Reedley College email address, I have officially communicated with you. So I cannot more strongly recommend that you pop it open every day. I haven't been here long enough to remember at the right time to ask somebody, but at the previous colleges, you could set up your college email to have it forwarded to your personal email account. So I don't know if that's the case yet. I haven't tried that. When I go home at 5 o'clock at night, I don't want my personal email receiving my work email, so I haven't looked into that. So you can look into that. But until you figure that out and make that happen, you need to start checking as a habit pattern. It's like every day I get home from school, I check my personal email, my work email, my college email, and then I open up my schedule of events and see what are the things I need to do tonight before I go to sleep. And one of those things is going to be 5 days a week, check your email. And of course on Fridays, you're also going to check your flying schedule. Okay. We already talked about flight schedule. You won't have to check it every day. But your flight instructors are going to need a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, see me after this briefing. We're not going to go into too much detail here. There is going to be covered on the first class. We're going to go over the safety rules that you have to follow as a student at Reedley College when you're flying airplanes. It's a little bit stricter. Like, for instance, to fly during the day in most of the airspace in Central Valley, you've got to have 3 miles of visibility. But when you're going to go flying by yourself without an instructor, you can't go unless it's at least 5 miles of visibility, because you're not the best airplane navigator yet. Stuff like that. We're going to cover all that. During ground class, simulator class, and flying classes only, it's this shirt right here. I paid extra so I could get mine beforehand. You do not have to buy the big or honking size like mine. But this is the shirt. If you, in aviation history, which is 102 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's going to be students in there that are not flight science flying students. So on those classes, no one has to wear the gray shirt. But on ground school, Monday and Wednesdays at 8, it's all the simulator classes, and whenever you go up to the airport, starting on Monday the 27th, you got to start wearing your gray shirt. For one period, one time is whenever the aeronautics club, it is a student club, that in the past has met every Thursday at 1:30 out in the lab. On that day, it's not that you have to go, but on that day, if the Aeronautics Club is meeting, you can wear an Aeronautics Club official t-shirt instead of wearing this. So you'll see it on Thursday. Because that means I can wear the official Aeronautics Club shirt on Thursdays. When you go out to fly, it is highly recommended you wear closed-toed shoes. Don't wear sandals. Don't wear flip-flops. And you're going to probably have to bend down on the ground and get on your knees so you can look underneath the airplane. I recommend that you not wear shorts. I also recommend you wear cotton-based clothes because if the airplane catches on fire, you won't burn. The plastic clothes you're wearing won't melt onto you. Like if you're a flight attendant, don't wear nylons because if it gets too hot, it'll stick to you. And of course, whenever I wear nylons, I got to shave my legs, and I really don't like doing that. So I usually don't wear nylons when I go flying. I recommend you take sunglasses if you're going to fly during the daytime. We'll talk a little bit about flight equipment. Headsets. I just found out there's a really good deal. Sporties has a $110 headset that says lifetime guarantee, and Mr. Brannon of JB Aeronautics said if your budget is tight and you're trying to not spend too much on a headset, he recommends that. So if you haven't set yet and your budget is tight, I think it's $110 plus shipping. I'm not sure, but it's from Sporties, and it's got a lifetime guarantee. If you send me an email, I got a link. I'll be happy to send you that link to where that is. But all the information about all this other flight equipment. Does anybody have any questions about the flight equipment you need for this semester? You notice this semester it doesn't say you need an E6B or a plotter or charts because we're not going to do cross-country planning until next semester. And people always ask me, what kind of a flight bag do I need to have? You need that $5 Kmart backpack that you used as a senior in high school. You don't need some trick flight bag. Can you spend $100 on some trick flight bag? Sure you can, and that's okay. But you just need one to carry your stuff around like you're a typical college student. That'll work to go to the airport. I do, however, I cannot more highly encourage you. I see this. I worked at a flight school where we had 200 students, and once or twice a year, find out that somebody left in their car, and it got stolen. Not their car, their backpack. A window was busted, or they broke into the car and stole the backpack, and it had their headset and logbook and all their books. I cannot more highly recommend that if you're going to leave your stuff in your car, put it in the trunk. If you have a vehicle that doesn't have a trunk, don't leave it there. You need to get into this habit pattern of that logbook. Mr. Brannon said he highly recommends, and I'm considering making it mandatory, when you go flying, leaving your logbook at the flight school. What I am going to highly recommend is every time you finish a page in your logbook, is you take a picture and you email it to yourself. So that if you ever lose your logbook, it's really, 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 really easy to print out the copies, and that will be just as good. But that logbook across this 6 semesters is going to come worth $65,000. Think about that logbook. It's going to be worth $65,000. Would you leave $65,000 in a backpack in your car? Ever? I mean, ever would you do that? You wouldn't even think it was a good idea to put it in your trunk, would you? Would you put $65,000 in cash and put it in the trunk of your car and then park your car and go to the movies in downtown Fresno at 8 o'clock at night on a Friday? Would you do that? I don't know how safe it is at the movie theaters in Fresno, but I wouldn't put $65,000 in my trunk. But hey, that's just me. All right. If you weigh more than 220 pounds, you got to fly the airplane that costs more money. If you weigh more than 250 pounds, we don't have an airplane that'll take care of you. So if you have questions about that, see me. If no matter what happens, you'll be filling out some forms next week with your emergency contact information, who to contact in case if you're unconscious or something happens, who do we call? It's not likely. But we're going to need to know that. And so it'll be your responsibility to keep that document up to date. We already talked about scheduling and the non-availability and then blah, blah, blah. Oh, and don't take a term off. Don't take a term off. You'll get rusty. Well, I'll take a semester off. Well, now you can't even take a semester off. You'd have to take 2 semesters off to catch up so the class behind you. You'll get really rusty. You probably won't pass that next semester when you come back. Oh, I was going to answer one of your questions. Your question was, can I go fly at Fresno Flyers? And the answer is, outside of Reedley College does not have the authority to tell you what you can and cannot do. That 30 hours of flying with your instructor and that 5 hours of solo by yourself, that has to be done with Reedley College flying equipment, with Reedley College instructors. If you're going and think you're not going to be, let's say it's the second semester. The second semester, you get another 30 hours with your instructor, another 5 hours you have to solo, and then you get 2 more hours to do your check ride with your examiner. If you're coming up close to it, and you go, I don't think I'm going to be ready, if you want to go to any place you want and take more flying lessons, that's identical to hiring a private tutor. You can hire a private tutor all you want. You can put those hours in your logbook. But Reedley College has absolutely nothing to do with that. We're not authorizing it. We're also not saying you can't. I'm saying we literally have no authority to tell you what to do outside of our college classes. It doesn't count towards anything in the college class. Like, for instance, that semester, 30 plus 5 plus 2. You use up those 37 hours and you still haven't passed your check ride, but you just got good enough, and you want to go to Fred's Flying School and to go take your check ride. Sorry, you earned your F in your flight course. Now, what you could do, go to Fred's Flying School, take another couple of flying lessons, take your check ride, get your private pilot certificate, and come to Mr. Johnson and say, Mr. Johnson, I got my private pilot certificate. Can I get copies on my transcript so next semester I can keep going? The answer will be probably, but the F on your flight course is going to sit there forever. So if you really think you need to do some flying outside the college, don't wait until the college class is over. But my guess is, the national average, I'm trying not to rant, but I'm so good at it. Okay, I think the national average to get a private pilot certificate is 70 hours. Now that includes people that fly twice a day for 3 weeks and they get it. And that also includes all the people who took 3 years and drug it out and took one lesson a month. Okay. So everybody's different. So trying to say 70 is an average makes you think lots of people can do it in 70. That means for everybody that took 50, somebody took 90. Well, our system is set up, by the time you take your 2 semesters of simulator flying, you're going to get another 30 or 40 hours of flying on top of your 70. So if you include the simulator flying, you get more than 100 hours of flying across 9 months. If you can't earn your private pilot certificate by the time that's over, you need to seriously rethink if you're going to become a professional pilot. Maybe life got in the way. Your dog died and your aunt died and all these other things, and that can mess you up. And I'm not saying that that's not important, and it is. But that's why you would come to me and say, well, am I going to be okay? Yeah. 37. Oh, no, we're not going to wait to the end. That would be so silly to wait to the end. You're going to take your written test about halfway through the second semester before anybody's ready to take their flying test. And then we're going to do the exact same thing as I showed on a previous slide. I'm going to schedule flight training so everybody passes their check ride 30 days before the end of the semester, so that we have a 30-day window to fix anything that goes wrong. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what was going to allow us, because I know,
You can go as fast as you want.
I mean,
Is that what you mean?
Well, because Part 16, you need 40 hours, Part 1.1, you need 35 hours, so I was just kind of wondering, like you said, some people take 50 hours.
Okay.
90 hours.
Oh, I see where you're going. You're allotted the hours in the private one. You get 30 hours of instruction with your instructor and 5 hours of solo. No more and no less. You get it. You're paying for it. And the VA says everybody has to pay the same amount, and everybody has to get the same amount of training. And it works out better for non-VA students anyway. Okay, I see your point. Let's say you get through. Let's say you get your 5 hours of solo, and you still got 10 more hours of dual instruction left. So you've got 20 hours with the instructor, and you got your 5 hours done. Now you got 10 hours more you didn't even need in semester 1. Are you saying what happens to that 10 hours?
I'm just saying, is that 10 hours allotted?
Oh, it's allotted.
Is there an hour limit that you have to worry about? Say there is somebody in the class that is taking longer than
Right. Okay.
Is there a point in time where you're going to hit a thing and they're going to say, hey, no more hours?
Yes, everyone's going to hit that 35 hours total the first semester, and you're done. whether you finished the course or not, whether you met a proficiency requirement or not. There's two things you have to do to pass the flying course. I'm really glad you asked this question. You have to get a certain level of proficiency, and you got to fly all your hours. If you don't do both, you fail the course.
Right. And then as you go into the second semester, you're already at 35 hours.
Right.
So you said you were going to continue to fly through the whole semester. Is there
35 hours is allotted to the first semester. Now you hit the reset button, you're back to zero. That 35 is still in your logbook. But now we reset to zero. Now the lab fee is $7,000. I can't remember what it is because it's got 2 more hours of flying in it. Say it's $7,000. Now you get 37 hours. You get that whole 37. But you to pass the course, you got to finish the flying, and you have to pass your private pilot check ride. If you get it done early, let's say that 37 hours, you get it done at 27. You got 10 hours left. You are still going to fly those 10 hours because you paid for them, and you need that 10 hours in 2 more semesters to earn your commercial certificate because you need 250 hours when you get there. So the system is set up that if you get 35 plus 37 plus 40, and the next semester, whatever it adds up to, you'll have 252 hours. Because you need to hit 250 and go up for your check ride. So if you land on your check ride, and we add all the numbers up, and you need 0.3 more hours, tomorrow or the next day or the next, you're going to get back to your instructor, and that you're going to get 0.3 on that airplane and put 0.3 in your logbook because you paid for it, even if you didn't need it, because you flunked the class if you don't get that many hours. Am I answering your question? The good news is, except for the very last course, actually, in every single course, if you get done with the requirement to pass the course, except you still need the rest of the hours, with your instructor, you're going to start working on the next semester and get ahead for proficiency's sake. So then you go into the next semester, if it needed 40 hours, most people, but you had 10 hours already, you're going to get it done in 30. So now you're going to be done with your proficiency requirement or pass the check ride. Now instead of 10 hours extra, now you got 15 extra. That 15 hours, you're going to work on next semester's proficiency. So it snowballs in a good way. Even if in the last semester you're working on your flight instructor certificate, I think there's 24 hours in that course. Let's say you go up and you pass and you earn your flight instructor certificate, and in 14 hours, I've seen it done. You got 10 hours left. Well, the flight instructor instrument certificate is not in this program. But you are going to sit with your instructor and start flying towards your flight instructor instrument so that that 10 hours is not wasted. You paid for it. You don't get a refund. You're going to get in that airplane. Let's get you ready for the next certificate, because sometime after you graduate, you're going to wish you got that next flight instructor certificate. So I got it set up so that at no moment in the degree are you flying, even if you pass your check ride early, at no moment do you have hours that you can't use towards something that you're going to end up needing, whether it's in school or it's a year after school. Did I answer your questions all right? You got to do 2 things to pass a course. Hit a proficiency level, which may include passing a check ride, and you got to finish the flying hours. Either one of those that you don't do, you get an F for the course. It's the way the VA says it has to be. A lot of schools, it used to be pay as you go. If you got done in 50 hours, that's all you cost you. But the VA said, no. You can't have a VA student taking 70 hours and a non-VA student taking 30. Everybody has to pay the same amount. It's a long story. You don't want to hear it. So we're going to stop. And because the rest of this stuff we're going to cover in class.